Well, and the name of your company is Wells Technology.
Right. Yeah.
Fascinating. So, how are you today, sir?
How long? Say that
I
again.
said, how are you today?
Oh, doing fine. Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Sure. Real
Okay.
good.
Coming across clear?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent, excellent, very good. So, I was, by the way, you came on my radar from the 2009 SBA Awards.
Uh-huh.
Is when I learned about you and your company.
Hmm.
And so what we're doing is we're interviewing grassroots entrepreneurs, small business persons to help inspire future generations of the next, entrepreneurs and SBA award winners. So you, it's interesting because I looked at your bio this morning, and wow, you have an incredible bio.
Oh, well, thanks much, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, wow. First of all, let's start off. You're from, how do you say that name of the city?
Well, Bemidji, Bemidji,
Oh,
Bemidji.
okay. Tell us about Bemidji.
It's a smaller town, about 12,000 people here. It was named after an old Indian man named, his name was Chief Bemidji, many years ago, and he was very well respected, so they just named the city after him. And we're about centrally located between three Indian reservations, which are about a half hour away, or roughly, in three different directions. So we have about 28% of the community is Native American.
Ah, okay. And you're Native American as well.
Yes.
Okay. I see your name is Andy Wells III.
Yes. Hmm.
Fantastic. Now, was any of your family, were they in engineering or manufacturing?
No, no, they were in farming. Well, they basically survived off the land, small farms, hunting and fishing and things like that.
Okay. Okay. Wow. And so how did you talk to us a little bit about how did you get into engineering and your products and what you design?
Well, right, we started 25 years ago here with our product, our business. But when I was young, finished up high school, and but while I was quite young, from 7, 8, 9 years old, I was always creating, new things, toys, tools, devices, and as we got a welder, that really gave a lot more capability of making go-karts, motor scooters, things like that.
Uh huh.
Small boats I built, and all kinds of little devices. So when I finished high school, then I went on to work for a company that was about an hour away called Polaris.
Okay.
They snowmobiles.
Yeah, Polaris. They make all type of four wheel ATVs and everything now.
Yeah, that's right. And so I was just a young kid, and I went there and showed him some pictures of the stuff I had built, and so he gave me a job, working I worked at night free, no charge, to experiment, build up some new ideas of snowmobiles, putting
Wow.
motors up front, putting fiberglass, which was a new material then, on the snowmobile. And it became very successful. And so after 6 months, the president told me, he said, "You should go to school. Go to Morris School to get some science and math and so on." And so I did do that. I went to a small state school, state university, and that worked out good. And I stayed there and got my education, and I went into teaching. And I was a high school teacher and a university teacher for quite a few years, about 20 years.
Uh huh.
But I noticed in my classes that there were very few Native American people. Um, Mostly, although we had 28% of the population, it was probably less than 2% were Native American in our school. So there was a real problem, and when I would go, to my home community on the reservation, a lot of the young people were out on the street basically because they had dropped out of school. We had 50% school dropout.
Okay.
And
Wow.
and when you drop out of the school and you have no job, six the unemployment is 60%. That's even now 60. That's a high.
That's a high 60% unemployment.
Yeah, yep. And so without education and no job, you see, they're just gonna like I would too. They would just get into mischief and trouble.
Right. 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 Right.
People, but that young people have to have something productive to do.
Right.
So I wanted to try and create some jobs, and I decided to give up my university career, and I was only 10 years away from retirement at that point.
Wow.
And I was tenured in, so I was a professor, but I resigned, gave it up, and decided I would work trying to build a little business, see if I could create some jobs. And of course, it's like driving at night with your headlights. You don't see real far, you just see a little ways. And I thought I might create 2 or 3 jobs.
Uh-huh.
So we started manufacturing. We bought a little machine. I had only $1,300 saved up because we had raised 4 children, and my wife was a stay-at-home mom.
Uh-huh.
We had a big garden. We lived out in the country, still do. And so, we didn't have a lot of money, but I bought an old machine, and I started trying to come up with some kind of a product I could make, and tried many different things. And I think I tried maybe 8 or 9 different projects that didn't work, but we just kept on. And, finally, after about 6 months, I came across something called an air-powered scissor. And it was manufactured, or we manufactured it for the poultry industry, so that they didn't have so much carpal tunnel and tendonitis in their hands.
Mm.
And in fact, I have one. I see it laying on my desk. If you'd like to see it, I'll go pick it up.
Yeah, sure. We'll look at it.
Yeah, this is what it looks like here. You can see it.
Okay.
Just put your hand in here, and then I'll turn it. And on the bottom, there's a little air fitting where you hook an air line.
Right.
And then every time you squeeze the trigger, the blades go shut. And of course, they let it go and they go back open again, like that. So it cuts off the chicken wings or the chicken legs or processes, various parts of the chicken. And it became very successful. They really liked it. So we began manufacturing them, maybe 50 to 100 at a time.
Right.
And I sold them out of the back of my car. I drove,
Wow.
the trunk got full. I would go out and spend maybe 3 weeks on the road selling all over the United States, and then come back and use the money to make some more.
Wow.
Eventually, we began to hire more and more people, and we got up to about 10. And at 10, around the year 2004, I was really struggling I couldn't seem to get beyond 10. And I needed some help, so I went to a big company called Fastenal. And Fastenal is a company that manufactures fasteners. They do many other things too, but that was sort of their foundation. And during the process of our growth, we got real good at making fasteners also.
Okay.
Them in our tools.
Right.
And so I asked them if they would help me learn how to do more things, more national marketing, more selling of hardware. Many times when I was out selling to chicken plants and other places that cut metal and cut carpet and so on, people would say, "Do you sell anything else?"
Ah.
To say yes, but I had no way of connecting. So the big company Fastenal became my mentor in 2004 under the Small Business Administration Mentor Protege Program.
Fastenal became your mentor under a mentor protege program?
Yeah, they were at that time doing about $1 billion a year. I was only at 1 million. Smaller.
So tell me, how did you approach what gave you the gall to call up Fastenal and approach them about mentoring you?
Well, they were occasionally buying things from me, and
Okay.
and so I knew I needed help to see beyond where I was. So I just went in one day and said, I want to grow. I want to employ more people. I sat at the table, and the head guy, the CEO, came in named Will Overton, and the president, Nick Lundquist, came in, and some lawyers and salespeople, and we exchanged cards. And I said, I really need help. I'm a little company. I've been in business now for about 14 years. I got 10 employees. We do about $1 million in sales. And we got this far by being honest, being innovative, working hard, and looking out for ways to help the customer. We're always focused on helping the customers, providing service. And I said, if that's not what you're about, then this won't work. We might just as well say goodbye. But I said, if that's what you are about, then we might have something here. And the head guy, the CEO, started grinning, smiling real big. And he reached in his billfold and he pulled out a card, and it said Fastenal Values. And it was the same words I had used,
Wow.
hard work, innovation, integrity, serving the customer. And I said, I think we're going to have a good relationship because we have the same foundation in our values. And so it has been a good relationship. And they started out by showing us how to do trade shows.
Okay.
To the big national ones, the National Minority Supplier Expos.
Uh-huh.
We have various ones all over the country, state and regional. And they helped me do the graphics for the backdrops and for our literature, our handouts.
Right.
And then they sat down with me and said, you got to have a strategy. What's your strategy for growth? How are you going to achieve your goals and so forth? And so we laid out some strategy, and part of it was getting out to be where the customers are. We're so remote up here in northern Minnesota that people don't find us.
No, I'm sure.
So we've got to go out. And that's really one of the problems we have on our reservations is the Native American people don't really know much about marketing. And they think that if we manufacture, and we do have on our reservation a fishing industry. They harvest about 1 million pounds of walleye fish, and they process it. But you've got to market also. And so many small entrepreneurs will start a business with a service or manufacturing something, and they don't realize how difficult marketing is. So they go into it not allowing enough time or labor or capital money to fund a real good marketing effort. And we find here that marketing is almost as much work and expense as the manufacturing part.
Sure. Wow.
We know that, and Fastenal told me that you've got to get out there and be where the people are. So they went with me at first and showed me how to, do trade shows, how to meet people, and how to follow up, with business cards and visits. And so I did that, but I could not have done that except my son, and I have 2 daughters working in the business too. And so they were here at home, watching everything and making things continue on a good path while I was out traveling, selling, meeting customers. And so it became, a really good relationship with the family. Now, sometimes, when you have family, you're going to have disagreements.
Yes, of course.
And, you have to, they all have to understand that they've got to work out their differences. And I went to the bank to borrow money, and when they heard that it was our family involved, in fact, my wife worked with me for a while here too, they said, well, you're kind of at high risk because we see a lot of little businesses start up, and either their partner or one of their family will lose interest or have a conflict, and it'll break up the company.
Right.
So I kind of heard that early on, and we've been real careful to minimize the conflict as much as possible. There is by far more strength if you are careful and aware of it than there is detriment with family. But you have to be really careful. It's really easy for example, I brought my son in as he's the vice president now, and it would be real easy for him to abuse his authority and
Certainly.
spend money on personal things.
Certainly.
But he knows, because I'm with him here almost every day, that you've got to be very accountable, very responsible. And I tell him, and it's like walking on a fence. You can fall off real easy. You can
Sure.
in a little push, a little temptation to lean one way or the other, and you'll fall off that fence. And that's the way it is in business. We got to be so careful with everything, or we'll get a lawsuit, or we'll have an injury, or there'll be something, a bad customer complaint. There's just so many things every day. But if you do it right and you really work at it, it does work.
Wow, that's amazing. Listening to your story, first on the note of working with family, I hear so many negative experiences and challenges in terms of working with family, the dynamics, it seems to the work and the strains of work tend to go home with the family, and then the personal issues that are at home tend to come into the workplace, and that's been the experiences that I've heard of. So to hear your story is remarkable, to say that it's been successful.
Well, it is very true, Eric. We have to be careful because a lot of times, there's conflicts out here in work between something going on, and if I go up to my home and I sit down at the dinner table with my wife and I start telling her these things, we know we can handle them, but she doesn't know that, and she takes the problems I tell her as being very large issues, and she starts to worry.
Okay.
My mother is that same way. My mother's 94 years old, and
Wow.
she asks, how's the business going? And I have to be very careful to tell her only the good parts. Because if I tell her the negative things, challenges, they, in their mind, when you bring it into the home, they exaggerate it beyond reality and
Right.
imagination.
Right.
So the opposite works too, though. We have to be careful with my employees that they don't bring their home problems to work. And they can't help it sometimes, so we have to deal with it. And I try to meet them in the morning and see how they're doing. But every place you have people, you're going to have divorces, you're going to have children that are sick, conflicts, or sometimes very successes, marriages, things they want time off to go hunting, fishing, get married.
Right.
These are all realities. So every business has to be flexible. And a little business maybe is a little bit better at that because you're closer to your employees.
Right.
And there's fewer levels of management if a decision has to be made. So, but you really are right. You've got to be very careful keeping the home and the business separate as much as possible.
Wow. Annie, let me ask you something. One of the things that I find it's very helpful for the audience is when people talk about times where they struggled or they had a difficult experience in business. So can you tell us about one of those times where it was really difficult for you and you weren't sure if you were going to still make it?
Yeah, it was because I was traveling more and more. I was home less. And when I was here, the business was doing well. I watched everything and so forth. When I was away, it was a little difficult for my son, for example. He was young, and we had older employees who didn't think they had to listen to the young man.
Mm.
And I told him on the phone, I said, you just have to fire them then. If they're not going to be, doing what you ask. And while we were going through that, I had another son who was younger, and I didn't spend much time with him, and it still kind of bothers me today. He went through his young teenage years without me present, and he got into some of the wrong groups of people.
Right.
Caught up in drugs, and ended
Right.
up doing time in prison. He almost committed suicide, and it really bothered me because I was so busy trying to grow the business that
Right.
my ability to grow my youngest son properly. And you have to be so careful in business. It is so consuming.
Yes.
This morning I was out here about 5 o'clock. I'll probably be out here tonight till about 8 o'clock.
Wow.
It's so consuming. If you're going to really maximize it, that sometimes you have to be careful that your family doesn't suffer because of that. And so I started staying home more. And when I stayed home more, we saw the sales starting to drop. And I hadn't taught other people how to do sales. So there was a time when our business came down really severely, and we didn't know if we were going to be able to make it because we had loans to pay and cash was getting very short.
Mm-hmm.
And to work with the banks, and try and rearrange our loans for a longer period of time, smaller monthly payments. We went through that struggle, and about the same time, my wife got cancer, so I had to be working with her for both emotional and physical, and
Right.
taking her to hospitals. And these things are all part of life, and still the business had to go on. There were getting to be like 30 people that depended on us.
Wow.
That's one of the things when you're a small business and you drive into your parking lot in the morning and you see all these cars of employees. Them and their families depend on you.
That's correct.
To be steering the ship correctly.
Yeah.
Doing things right. And
Sure.
some people might say, well, they can get another job, but might be true, but in our community, it's not very easy to find another job when we
Wow.
have so much unemployment. So it makes a big difference, and we really want to help them. So it's a big responsibility having employees and serving customers.
So how did you overcome that time? How did you overcome that period of time where it was so severe that you weren't sure if you were going to make it?
I guess I've always been an optimist, and I believe in myself. I believe that by sharing problems with other people who are skilled or knowledgeable, they will help you. That's why our relationship with the Fastenal, and I would encourage other small companies to become aware of what the SBA, the Small Business Administration, does, and to work with them, to get in their 8A program, their Hub Zone program, or maybe a loan through their financial arrangements, or mentor program. There's so much there, but it really is helpful, and just having other professionals to talk to sometimes, maybe formally in their office or maybe over lunch informally about your family or some situation. It's nice. You see, as you grow into a small business and become an entrepreneur, you've got to change friends too.
Hmm.
The friends I had before were more into education and teaching,
Right.
so they didn't have any interest in entrepreneuring. And while I was excited about helping and growing a
Right.
business,
Sure.
they didn't really have any interest at all and wanted to change the subject. So I had to find new friends who were also in business of some sort, and they certainly were good help. Now that's an advantage of going to some of these events statewide or community that are organized for business, small business, trade fairs, conferences,
Mm-hmm.
seminars, because you network with others, and among a group of people, you usually can find one or two that your personality kind of matches.
Right.
You begin to talk and sharing each other's successes and challenges, and you learn from each other.
Sure.
I also, from the SBA, got a scholarship to go to Tuck University of Business at Dartmouth,
Yes.
and because of that, I didn't really want to go, but they gave me the scholarship. So I said, well, I'll see what happens. And we were really struggling here. And I told my son, this is the worst time. We're barely making it. Now I got to spend the week away sitting in some classes. And when I got there, I was really surprised because when I walked in the room, there was about 40 other people just like me, struggling also.
Ah.
They were there to learn too. And when the professor came in, you know, uh, we began to realize right away, because we all had different issues, that he didn't have the answers for us, but he did have the questions. And it was totally different than what I expected. I thought we would go in and they would say, here's what you do A, here's what you do B, here's what you do C,
Right.
and become successful. It wasn't like that. But they came in, they asked us, take a piece of paper and write down, where do you want to be in 10 years? What do you like to do? What's your dream? What's your idea of a good day? And they had 1,000 questions, and by answering the questions, each one of us had different answers, but we began to see what our future was like when they asked the questions and we provided the answers. We had the answers inside of us, and they helped us bring those answers out, so we began to have a roadmap of our direction in our business. And of course, there were times we could certainly ask them, what do you do when you're short on cash flow and so on, and they would give us some basic direction of things to try, but they would turn it right around and then ask us, you know, um, questions that would get us back on coming up with our own plan.
Hmm.
One of us had to have our own recipe for success, really. And the last day, they said, okay, so now you've got papers full of things you want to do, but that'll help you be successful, but who cares besides you? I mean, what are you going to do to be significant?
Hmm.
How are you going to really make a difference in the world beyond money? And I began to think about that, and then one of them, an African American lady, came in and gave a little presentation, and she was telling about how she was helping some young girls, 14-year-old girls who didn't have good homes, and she had three of them that she was helping. And I began to think, I got to do more. We have so many young people that are struggling, they're kind of lost. And when they come to my door, they need help. And I came back home and was telling my son about this. And a week later, a young man came and applied for work, and we had probably 100 of them like him. Fill out an application, and on there we asked the question, do you have a felony? And when they said yes, we would automatically reject them. We never told them that to their face, but we would just say, well, thank you for the application, and then
Certainly.
the drawer. Never went any further. Well, a week after that school, when I came home, it was kind of on my mind. And one day, a fairly large Native American young boy came in, probably around 22, 23 years old, and he filled out his application. And I looked at it, and I could see he had checked felony. And so, a lot of them get into mischief, steal a car, do some drugs or something.
Right, right.
Violent people, but they just are young men, 70%, 70, grew up without a father. So it's like big boys out on the street. They're not
That's
really.
that's that's for Native Americans, or is that overall?
No, it's for Native Americans on our reservations.
Wow.
70%. No fathers in the home. And that makes a big difference. And so, anyway, I just kind of stood there holding his application, thanked him, and he shook my hand, and I said, well, we're really not hiring, right now, and he said, well, I understand that. He said, he knew what I was saying. He knew I had said.
Right, right. Of course.
He said, thank you. He was very polite. He said, thank you anyway for talking with me here. And he shook my hand, and I watched him, Eric, walk back to his car, and I could see a lady in the car and some little kids in the back seat. And I said, it's my time to do something about this, to reach out and help people who are really on the bottom. And instead of looking for those graduates from the university or smart kids out of school, I want to help the other end, help the bottom part.
Mhm.
If
Wow.
I was really a good teacher, it's not about just teaching the best, it's about teaching those who are most in need sometimes. So he got back to his car, and I suddenly turned around, went out there, and I said, come on back, let's talk. I'd like to interview you. And of course, he just lit up like a birthday candle. He was happy.
Right.
And
Wow.
how would I have felt, going back to my family when nobody wanted me? This was an important thing to do. So he did come back, and he worked with us, and it was the start of our academy. We then started a school. I wanted to make it official. We got state approval to provide an apprentice program. It's 2,000 hours. And we write our own curriculum to be machinists and welders. And so now we've had 64 people go through this program. We have a full-time instructor, and each one, it's an investment of $16,000. And I put that in myself, and we've had some scholarships from different companies to
Mhm.
a little bit, but we try to do 8 to 10 a year.
Okay.
We can absorb that much into our system. We have about 45 employees here.
Okay.
So we get about 8 or 10 apprentices without disrupting the total production.
Right.
And so they go through their year of training, and then they get a certificate, and they become journeymen if they want to leave and go into a union shop or something like that. Or they can stay. We'll hire them if they want to stay. So it gives them an opportunity for an education and a career in machining, which, they're making good full-time wages, full-time benefits, and it changes the whole family, because now the man comes home, the young boy is actually a man. We teach character too, not just skills, but we teach character, the value of honesty. I tell them, you got to build trust. People have to trust you, and you have to earn their respect. And here's how you do it. You be honest. You do what you say you're going to do. You have integrity. And you show caring for other people. And we have a whole bunch of stuff that we follow. One day we wrote on a blackboard all the words that are important as an employee or as a good parent. And we had over 100 words. Things, like being loyal, for example, being prompt, being energetic,
Right.
so forth. And you just go on and on. There's so many.
Do you have a picture of that? A blackboard?
I do, actually.
Oh wow! Can you send it to me afterwards? I'd love to have that picture of that blackboard shot.
Yeah, so what we did then is, we teach that along with the skills, And one day a salesperson came to our shop, and he was looking for a bottle of, soft drink. And so I said, sure. So we went over to the dispensing machine, for soda pop, and I put $1 in, and we stood there talking, and he's looking at my employees, and and he's seeing quite a mixture of people here. And he said, you mentioned you teach skills. He said, I got that, but you teach character. He said, I haven't heard that before. Does it really work? And I said, let's see what happens. So I took a $20 bill out of my billfold, and I dropped it right in front of the soda machine. And I said, just leave it there. Let's see what happens. And so we came back to my office, and we were here maybe 10 minutes. And then I hear a knock on the door, and a fellow, one of my academy fellows who had been in prison actually 5 years, but got out and was doing well here as a student, came in, and he said, Mr. Wells, did you lose $20? And I said, well, let me check. And I started reaching for my billfold. Before I could get it out, he said, it must be you. I've asked everybody else, nobody's lying.
Wow.
He could have said nothing and just put it in his pocket.
Certainly, right.
Because we show them respect and honesty, and they know we expect it back. And I have my goals set high, and I'm gonna show you something, and I'm just gonna reach back and I'll show you an example of why this works.
Okay.
Now this is really impromptu, but I'm gonna show you this. If I hold this up, see this stick of wood?
Yes.
This is kind of like the young men I bring in. Oftentimes they've had some issues in their life, and they're a little bit rough on the outside, the way they look and talk and act in their history.
Uh-huh.
What I see is what's on the inside. I see a carved face. I don't know if you can see it there. But
I see a face with eyes and
I see the potential within these
wow.
people. Help them and give them some direction. They can turn around. I'm going to start to take them this year out on the sales route with me and introduce them to trade shows. I took one with me last year. He did really well. So I want to do more of that. Get them out so they can see the big world, see all the opportunity, meet the people. And I want to do it for another reason. I want people to see that you can do this. We don't have to accept poverty. There is a way to help people.
Sure, right.
It requires not only help by folks like me, but help. They have to help themselves too. They got to believe in themselves, and we've got to give them that confidence. We got to let them know that it's not just something you watch on TV. The success of other people. It's something that can happen to you too. Whether you're on inner city or you're on a reservation or in a rural community, it's for everybody.
Wow.
But it has to come from the inside. But they can't do it on their own. It's like someone trying to learn how to swim. If there's another person there to show them, it goes a lot better. And that's where small entrepreneurs like me and others who have figured out how to get a little business, even if you just got 1 or 2 employees, the important thing is if you can come back and mentor somebody else, maybe you can encourage them to start a little business or to do better in their life. Maybe first starting as your employee and being around there for a year or 2 and then trying to follow their dream. And I encourage people to live their dream. Don't just come here and help me live my dream. You got to live your dream too. And if you want to be an entrepreneur, go for it. I'll help you.
Those are powerful words, Andy. I mean, I don't know if you know, but that's the whole idea of the show is for people to listen to the podcast and learn from successful entrepreneurs such as yourself so that you can mentor them, not necessarily one-on-one, but just by hearing your story, hearing your experiences, they could be encouraged and then motivated to go to the next level and take that leap. So that's exactly what we're doing, and that's exactly why we're interviewing today.
And it changes the whole community because these young men come back to a home that was broken, and now they got a paycheck in their hand. They got some dignity. They're on a course, a pathway, that has a future. And the ladies in their life, the mothers, the girlfriends, whatever, wives, treat them with a lot more respect. And the men like that. They've probably been kicked around a lot. They never had a lot of respect.
Wow.
Instead of getting respect by being tough on the street, now they got respect because they're doing good things.
They're doing good things, positive things for the community, for their families.
The little boys and girls who are in that home see this. They see the father starting to act like a man, loving his family, providing for his family, and they begin to follow that as a model in their life. So it's been a fun experience to watch this kind of thing develop. And other people can do it. You see, we have a unique thing here. People like me and you and others like us, we can't expect a big corporation to come into our community and start a big factory. It just
Right.
isn't.
No, it's not. It doesn't happen anymore.
The government puts money in, but it's just to survive type money, welfare, subsistence, that kind of thing.
Uh huh.
In order to thrive, we've got to get up on our own feet if we're going to thrive. And the other money can help us maybe exist, but we've got to get up if we're going to thrive. And we can help. We are that connection. We can go out and connect with the big. I can do this now. I can go out and connect with big companies. Like let's say Disney World and
Right.
General Motors and these big
Certain.
corporations. And I can provide them products as a minority person because they have a minority spend goal, and they'll work with us. And but it's up to us to hire the people in our own community
Right.
and reinvest the profits back in our communities. And so we can help others because we have that connection, and it allows our people to finally begin to be part of the American dream that way.
Certainly. So, Andy, when did you see your business start taking off,
Uh,
and you start seeing some of the fruits of your efforts and your rewards from all the sacrifice that you've put it in from the
I
years?
think, I think there's been many times. The first time was when I sold my first tool. I couldn't believe it. It was a real. Somebody actually said, "Yeah, I'd like to buy one of those."
Uh huh.
It's a new experience, but I think the biggest change probably came in 2004 when I finally became sort of a protege of a big successful company
Right.
because it's like walking alone in the woods and suddenly it gets daylight and you can begin to see. You know,
Uh.
see all how to get around the obstacles because
Right.
the company gave me so much information. And I would really encourage small entrepreneurs to reach out and try and find a partner, not necessarily a legal business partner, but a partner in terms of advice and suggestions and caring. And there are big companies that will do this. Most big companies have mentoring programs, and it's worth checking into. But the important thing before that, Eric, the foundation of all this is you must have good character. You must earn their trust so that they want to work with you.
Wow.
And do have good business ethics is what I'm saying, and personal too. When I go to trade shows and things, I'm not hanging out at the bars. I'm not bad mouthing people. You can't do those negative things. You've got to live a good life. You've got to walk the talk.
Wow. That's great. That's great advice. Yeah. Most people don't know how to network. So, if someone is shy and they're afraid of networking, how would you encourage them? What would you say to them?
Well, I was too at first. I mean, it's kind of in a Native American tradition or culture. It's a sign of strength to be humble.
Okay.
In fact, when we were little, we weren't supposed to look somebody else in the eyes. We were supposed to look down, and that showed respect.
Right.
So change of culture for me. But I learned to get out there, and it's still to this day when I go networking. I kind of start by standing in the back of the room. I just get out,
Uh,
walk in. That's who I am.
Even till today.
But yeah, but then I remember I've got to get out. There are 30, 40, 50 people here, depending on me. So I've got to put myself out and reach out and say hello and remember every one of us is unique. We all have something that's kind of a interesting part of our life. Uh, and so I usually bring one of my little hand tools like I showed you with or various other things and to open the conversation I'll just take out something, maybe a brochure, and say, have you seen this, or you know how that works, or some people just have charisma. I don't have so much of that. You we all have a gift in some way, or we know somebody, or
Uh-huh.
I mean, one of the things I do too, it really works, is I go sit up in the front of the room. And I'll give you an example. I started doing business in New York the past few months,
Uh-huh.
and New York is a very dynamic
Yes, it is.
culture group. And so they had a seminar, and I watched people come in as the last part of the day, and the head guy, a really important person in New York for buying for universities, was going to give a little presentation. So I went and sat right up in the very front chair, right in front of him.
Uh-huh.
And everybody else was coming in, and it was late in the day. They wanted to get out early, so they sat more towards the back. Well, at the end of the presentation, I jumped up right away. I was first in line to hand them my card.
So,
When I asked him, I said, I have an interesting story. I said, may I come and see you someday so I could follow up and show you how we can help people in your community? And he said, yeah, okay. I said, well, scan me your card. And he did. Well, then, of course, another 10 people show up.
And they lined up behind you.
Yeah, but I had the first 10 seconds. You know, you remember the first and the last person the best usually.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did follow up, and I had an hour and a half meeting with him. He's one of the top buyers for universities in New York. And he really listened to us, and he gave us a lot of suggestions. But the thing is, you got to find your uniqueness. Everybody's got uniqueness, and then kind of build on it. Find your strength. A boxer a long time ago was named Rocky Marciano, and he had big arms when he was a little kid, and people kind of teased him. But as he got older, those big arms made him a very powerful boxer, and he became world famous as a champion fighter. But we all have weaknesses, and we can turn them into strengths. So my humbleness actually comes across as a strength, and I would say that to your listeners, that if you're a quiet person or you have difficulty networking and so on, let that become your humbleness. Let that become a sign of respect, a sign of honesty, integrity. Sometimes a person who jumps out in front and wants to shake your hand and give you a hug, I'm almost a little scared of them, because you wonder, what do they want?
Right.
And it's almost better to come on a little bit on the humble side, I think, and then gradually earn their respect. But do everything you say. If you say you're going to meet with them at a certain time, be there 5 minutes early. Don't be late. Return your phone calls.
Right.
Return emails promptly. Things like that. Do what you say you're going to do, and earn their respect. And it takes a while. I run into a lot of young companies starting up, and they say, well, I came to a trade show, but I didn't get any contracts. Well, it takes a while. Some of them, like Lockheed Martin, I worked on that for 10 years before I got my first business opportunity. It takes a while. They got to see you. They got to begin to trust you, know you, and kind of see the direction you're heading and see if there's a fit between you and them.
Wow. And looking at your profile, I see you have a couple patents that you've been received.
Yeah, we've got quite a number of patents, and it was good, but some of them expired. But if you get a running mark, jump patents give you 17 years. Beyond that, you should have established yourself so that you can keep going.
Wow. Let me ask you, I was reading one of the articles, and they said you won a Hall of Fame, you were inducted to the Entrepreneurial Hall of Fame by the Minority Business Development Agency.
We do that. We got several of those. Up here in the northern part of our state, they have a Hall of Fame also for people who have done things, and I think they've got 5 people now, and I've been fortunate to get that. But the one that you're talking about was for Minnesota. It's called the Metropolitan Economic Development Association.
Mm-hmm.
To me, and that was nice, for not only inventing things, but for developing a social system where we can reach out and help other people who fell through the public system. The schools weren't helping them, the prisons weren't helping them. In fact, when I go to the prison and picked up one fellow, the guard just said, "See you later." And I said, "Why do you say that?" And he says, "Because 70% are coming back."
Wow.
And it's like the whole industry, all of its own. And I said, "Well, not this one." And so when I work with them, our goal is to give them a better choice than prison. Give them opportunity, give them some tools to succeed. But it's fun. It's nice to get an award, but the greatest reward of all, Eric, is just seeing somebody get a paycheck, go home to a family.
Wow.
A young boy today who come out of South Dakota, one of the tribes. He was an alcoholic, and they sent him to us, and we put him in our school. It's not like a light switch. We got him started. He went about 3 months, and then he got in with the old friends, had a party, dropped out. I didn't see him for 6 months. One day he came back, and he was apologizing, and he said, "I know you probably won't give me a second chance." He said, "If you did, I would prove to you I could do it this time." He said, "I've been sober now," he said, "for about 5 months."
Right.
I said, "Have you got a sponsor?" I said, "I want to see you have a sponsor, somebody who cares about you when you're away from work and keeps you away from those parties." And so they do. They usually find a grandparent or a religious leader or someone in the community who will talk to him every week and ask him how it's going. So he did, and he's been here now about a year. He finished teaching, he's employed, and he was so excited. He said, I got a little baby girl. He said, I'm so excited. He said, it's going to be a fun Christmas. And I said, are you living with your girlfriend? He says, yes. I said, well, you take care of her. Now I said, you got responsibilities. That's your family.
Wow.
You make sure you take care of both of them.
Right.
And, oh, yeah, yeah. And he was happy. But that's the way it should be. You know, sometimes us older men have to realize that all these young boys out there, they may not be our blood kin, but they are our responsibility to help these young boys become men.
Wow.
You know, if they really want to do well. I think a lot of these young guys on the street really want to do well, and they want to be respected, but they just don't know how, and they need someone to care about them, someone to reach out to them and help them get up, and teach them how to walk. And they've fallen so many times and skinned their knees. Now it's time to teach them how to walk. And so they will one day learn. Once they learn how to walk, they'll try running on their own, and pretty soon they'll do fine.
Wow, wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. So, where are your goals? I have here in this report, it says that you guys have grown to about over 90 million in revenue, and that was in 2011.
Yeah, yeah, it's a challenge. You know, we keep working on it, but our goals are not so much money. I mean, we try to shoot for around 15% growth a year.
Okay.
But our goals is to make sure that we don't grow so fast we stumble and make some really bad mistakes. You know, we got to be so conscious of serving customers, but doing good for our community too, and taking care of our suppliers, our employees. Unlike a lot of companies, we care about our suppliers and we don't beat them up. We know they have to make a profit. We want them to be there for us in the future. And you know, I said, you know, it's okay to make a small, reasonable profit. That's what we ask for too. So our future is more, instead of a specific goal like so many million or something, it's more about trying to help the people and to grow at a controlled but healthy rate.
Okay. 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 And your experiences with, have you ever mentored anyone else?
Well, yeah, we've mentored quite a few people in starting businesses. I went back to our reservation and I said, why don't we form a group of our leaders and start some small businesses? And they said, oh, we tried that before. We tried it 4 times, and the tribal council owned them, and they all went bankrupt. I said, well, you know, we're going to do it a little different this time. And so we did get together. We started 3 years ago, and now we've started a propane business, a Subway business, a dollar store. We've improved our fishery, improved our road construction company.
Nice.
You know, it's not me doing it. It's just that I got together and let the people start talking. What can we do?
Right.
The big things, and this is really important for tribal Native American organizations, is to get business out of the tribal council and put it into a separate business group, a separate corporation that runs the businesses. Because in tribal council government, the leaders are trying to maintain their votes, their basis of staying in power.
Mm-hmm.
Business, you're trying to maintain a profit margin.
Right.
And it's two differences. For example, you might have an employee who really shouldn't be there. You need to get him replaced, and you can't fire him because he's a cousin of one of the tribal leaders.
Right.
And you get into this conflict between business and politics. And so I said, if you really want to make money in the tribal, you know, for a reservation, you have to separate politics from business, and put trusted people in charge of the business and trusted ones in charge of the politics, you know, and then they can operate. And so we've been doing that now for 3 years, and most of the people are behind it. They're beginning to see profit. We even started a little fireworks store to sell fireworks, and they made, you know, like $30,000 last year, and they couldn't believe it. I said, yeah, you know, if you do it right, you can make profit.
Wow. Wow.
So it's fun, but you know, I make a lot of mistakes, you know, and I mentioned falling. Well, I fall a lot, but I try to fall, you know, any particular way just one time like that. But you know, as long as you fall forward, Eric, when you get up, you're about 3 feet ahead of where you fell. And if you ever,
I never thought of that.
yeah, but you got to keep going for your goals. You know, you can't turn around. You got to keep going.
You have to push through it.
Yeah, perseverance is so important, and just hanging in there. Fortunately, I think my wife has always believed in me, and everybody needs to have somebody, because a friend, a leader, or somebody that believes in you, and because there are times when you begin to sometimes doubt yourself
Right.
in the tough days, and although some of us have a tremendous amount of self-confidence, we still get questioned ourselves
Yeah.
sometimes. And a lot of times people will see something in us that we don't see ourselves, strength or quality, and they'll bring it out and remind us that we can do it.
Wow. Wow. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So are you still, I see on your website it says you're still Native American, SDB, SB, MBE.
Yeah. And we're certified in not all, but most all of the states.
Okay.
We belong to the National Minority, Economic Development Group.
Okay. So are you still receiving benefits from some of those programs?
Benefits from
I
where?
mean, are you still receiving contracts, or are they still beneficial to you, the programs?
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. We go to the trade shows, conferences, we stay connected, networked, with people. Um, they're very, very good. We just never would have got this far without these organizations. Um, sure, an entrepreneur is key, and I know the politicians like to say, well, you started a business or you didn't start a business, stuff like that. But the truth is, we maybe are the champion. We're the one that really kind of steers it, but there are so many important parts.
Right.
Wouldn't do it without those important parts. The employees, without these organizations. I need all of this. It has to all come together. And we're kind of sometimes, Eric, like the person out on the stage. You could take any famous movie star or singer, Barbara Streisand, for example, a great singer, or any of them. Put them on stage, but they depend on the technicians. They depend on the ticket sellers. The people who maintain the auditorium.
Right.
It has to come together. Even though the actor gets the credit and the glory, the rest of them are right there making it happen. And it's the same with me. I get glory for it, but to tell you the truth, there's hundreds of people that are making it happen behind the scenes. And these organizations are truly important. And that's the first piece of advice I would give a young entrepreneur, especially one who's a minority, is go to some of your local events and just start hanging out. It doesn't even cost money. Go as a visitor and shake a few hands and tell people what your dream is, and ask for help. Don't be so proud. Ask for help. And there are people who will identify with you and will sit down with you and talk with you, and just keep working hard at it. But tell people what your goal is. I was always telling people, I want to be in business. Even when I was teaching at a university, they'd kind of look at me and laugh and, say, yeah, sure, you're going to be one of the 70% who'll be back here begging for your job.
Right.
A diving board. Once I go, I'm not going to fail, because I will not accept failure. I will keep on mistake and keep going.
Powerful words. You don't accept failure.
No, you won't accept failure. And you just get, because, when Thomas Edison was working on light bulb, and it's an old story, they said, they asked him partway into his experiment, what works? And he said, well, I'll tell you about 500 things that don't work. But he said, the one thing that does work is still out there, and I'm going to find it. And it's true so many times. When I invented that air scissor, if I'd have thought about this ahead of time, I'd have brought in a big jar, a gallon glass jar full of parts for this scissor that didn't work.
Really?
Yeah, and I show people, I said, it took 6 months and all these experiments, but eventually it worked.
Oh, wow.
And that's true in business, too. We try things, you try your sales pitches, you try your, meeting different people, and some work. And then that's what you build on, and you kind of find your way like that.
And that's worked for you all these years.
Yeah, I just keep trying things and find the stuff that does work. And a lot of it's not even in a book. There's nowhere in a book that I read how to reach out to these young men to help them, except it just kind of came from my heart. I could see myself being in the position they're in, except I had a father. And the father, was kind to me, but he also disciplined me. And he had goals, and he thought beyond today. When I ask some of the young people, what's your goals? They say, I just want to get through today. And unfortunately, sometimes they self-medicate themselves with alcohol or other drugs to just get through today.
Right.
And I tell them it has to be more than that. There's more of a future for you. You're an important person. You got success within you, but we have to help you develop it.
Right.
So it's fun working with them.
Wow. 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 Uh, Anything else you want to share with someone starting out in business that you think could be helpful? Any resources? Besides the SBA, we know the SBA is a large organization. They have the different departments within the SBA and other agencies that are affiliated with them, such as the scores and the PTACs and the MBDAs. But anything else that's helped you along your journeys? Maybe a book, maybe a success quote, or a story that you can share with people that could help them.
Well, I went to the bank, early on, and I knew someday I would need money, and I knew they would never borrow it to me then. But I told them that. I said, you don't know me, you never borrow me any money, but tell me, what do I need to do to be successful? And there's a lot of people in your community, wherever they might live, they will reach out and say, well, here's some things. Establish a line of credit, get a credit card, pay it off promptly, and just start with little things. And sure, you can have your big dreams and goals, but you got to start with one little baby step first, and then another step, and another step. And it's a lot of work, but it doesn't feel like work. If you're doing what you love, it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like it's something you do. It's you. It's
Right.
and then keep pursuing it. If it feels like work, you're not in the right thing. You need to find what is your interest, your talent, and pursue that. But I guess the most important thing is learn to like people, learn to love people. Uh, you know, there's a lot of good people in the world, and with a little bit of just keeping your eyes open, you can spot the ones that are not truly honest or have integrity. And
Right.
of course, you got to, you know, kind of avoid working with them. But there are a lot of good ones, and
Right.
they help you. They really do care. And sometimes you feel alone, but there's a lot of people out there that'll help you. You never have to be lonely. And don't be afraid to ask for help. My goodness, there's so many, just going to even the smallest of organizations. There are people there that will tell you about other opportunities. So we get an awful lot of advice and, follow it too. And that's how I ended up in New York. Someone told me that Governor Cuomo out there was, trying to encourage big companies and organizations to use more of the little companies. And so I said, well, that's good. We go out there. They're looking for little businesses, and especially minority-owned businesses.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity. It's a great era that we live in. And some people say, well, the economy's up or down, and I say, well, it might be up or down out in the world, but I look at what's between your ears. What's your attitude? Is your attitude up?
Uh,
And when the economy is down, that's a good time to be out there because a lot of people are getting discouraged. But when you come out, you offer them hope, you offer them a smile and opportunity, and a lot of companies need to see that. I guess I always think it's up if your attitude is up.
right. Wow. Wow. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Your attitude definitely drives how you're going to go forward in terms of business, in terms of your relationships, in terms of when you meet and you have that networking event. If you have the wrong type of attitude, it's going to come across.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
It's going to come across, and people are going to notice it right away.
And people like to be around positive attitude
Yes,
people.
yes, yes, yes. 100%.
If you ever watch a sporting event, whether it's baseball or wrestling or football, at the end of the game, the audience, the people want to reach out and touch the winners.
Yeah, that's true.
Got a super attitude now. They just won. They're on a big high, and people want to be with those guys. So if you go out in business, even if you're just a single entrepreneur with no employees or just your own one or two, have a positive attitude, a smile, and don't do that negative talk. Talk positive. Talk about your dreams and what you want to achieve and where you need help and some of the things you want. But always do it, I think, in the sense of trying to help other people, not just yourself. Your mission should be to help other people through your product or your service or sometimes just generosity. And if you don't have much money because you're just starting out, and we didn't, we gave a lot of our time, and I still do, to help these young folks time is something we have. Everybody has it. And you can use your time to reach out and find something that fits your heart, something that helps. It might be helping crippled children. It might be helping old people with a ride to the grocery store, or a neighbor. Maybe it's a teenager who's going through a breakup relationship problem, or
Wow.
there's always ways you can help, even if it's the smallest little way to the world. It might be really big to that person, and it makes all the difference. And when you start doing that and talking about it with your customers in an honest, sincere way, your customers will appreciate it and see that you stand for more than just money. You stand to make this world a better place, and they want to do business with you because you're a winner.
Wow. Yeah, my mom taught me to have a serving mentality.
Yes, that's right.
Have a serving mentality first. And something else that you said early on is something that my family taught me as well, which is you volunteered to work for free at Polaris to help you get your start.
Yeah. Here I watch employees, and like every place, some are really focused on that time clock, and they want to get every penny for every minute and so forth.
Oh my gosh, I have that every week.
Yeah, and they just come in and they'll sweep off the sidewalk first, and then they come in and hang up their coat, and then they finally punch the time clock.
Right.
And those are the ones, when it comes to time for promotion and yearly evaluation, those are the ones that do well, because they're trying to give a little bit more. It's not all focused on getting.
Right. Wow.
For any employee, if I went out to be an employee, even if it was just at a hamburger shop, I would do as much as I could and not even worry about the clock so much, because people will notice that.
Right.
Eventually, good things will come back to you when you do that.
Wow. That's fantastic, Andy. That's fantastic. Well, I certainly appreciate you today. I appreciate your time. I'm happy that we got a chance to spend this little time together. And in fact, when I reached out to you, I had no idea that you had this wealth of knowledge and you had achieved these awards. I mean, I saw you with the president, and he gave you an award. How was that experience?
Oh, that was fun. I was so surprised. He came in, and there was 50 of us, one winner from each state.
Uh-huh.
And they told us we didn't know who was going to be there. They said a political person, and we thought it could be a senator maybe.
Right.
And then the guard came out and said, well, we're going to have a guest now come and speak to you for a minute or two. You can stand up, you can clap, you can sit down, but, for security, don't leave your chair. So, sure enough, then they said, here comes the President of the United States. And he came in and he starts talking about me, Wells Technology. I'm starting my little business with $1,300, and so on. And he said, this is what we honor and respect, our little businesses like this. And he went on and said a few more things, and then he said, thank you, and then everybody clapped. And he took about 3 steps, and then he said, no, I'm going to shake a few hands. And he came back, and he came right over to me, and he said, I want to thank you for not only starting your business, but for staying in your community and helping the people there. Because what happens, Eric, so often in our poverty communities is those of us who have success or an education will want to leave and go out into the big world, and try and do what we can there. But there comes a time, and I'd say that's okay to get that experience and all, but there comes a time in our life when we need to come back to our communities and give back to our communities. We can't just keep leaving, because it's like a brain drain or a success drain in our communities when we have our best and brightest leaving all the time.
Right.
At some point in their life, they need to come back and in some way find how they can raise the level of life quality in their community. And for me, that's what I do now, and it's been a lot of fun, and I'm going out to other Native communities and helping them to try and inspire them and show them what we do. And all over the United States, I try to go out and speak at conferences and things like that and encourage them. Let them know that there is hope, and give them kind of a mental vision of what can be done.
Well, just so you know, Andy, I interviewed Tim O'Leary from Kettle House Brewery, and Tim, he's out of Montana, and let me tell you, he said the same thing. Him and his wife wanted to come back to their community and build their business in their community because it didn't exist. And so he said some of the sacrifice that he made was to work in that community because there were no jobs. And so he had to create his own opportunities. So he had to create a business and then be able to employ people to grow it. And so that was his choice, and his decision was to live in that community and build it up. So that should be very encouraging for you to know that that's happening around. That is happening, and those are the stories that we're capturing.
Oh, that's good, Eric. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And things like what you're doing with your show, that's important, because you encourage other people.
That's what I want to do. I want to encourage other people. I want them to know. Just like you didn't know that story, someone else didn't know it either, and they need to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's great. So.
Well, thank you so much for the interview.
No, thank you. I'd like to come back to you sometime in the near future and check in on you, see how you're progressing.
Well, we keep trying and learning new things, and every day. So.
Wow, fantastic, Andy. Well, hey, listen, don't forget to send me that blackboard picture.
If you like, I can send. I think I got it on the list right now. I listed all those words. I think there's 104.
Yeah, send me the picture via email while we're here talking.
Yeah, I've got your email, so I'll just send it to you.
Yeah, send it to me via email.
Sure. Okay.
I've got to run off, and I'm sure you have some things to do today.
Oh yeah, but we'll get it to you.
Okay, no, not a problem, Andy. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Sure, you're welcome, Eric. Okay, good luck.
All right, good luck to you too as well. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Okay, bye now.